We got some magic. We got some magic. Rudy Giuliani is on Dinesh D'Souza's podcast and killing it with 6,000 views.
I am really thrilled to welcome to the podcast someone who's really been a hero of mine, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, somebody who first
Glory hole
came to prominence for basically
brooming out the Italian mob so the Russians and Chinese could move in.
Fixing the crime problem in New York, making
Did he really fix it?
New York a livable and a safe city.
Yeah, but you know, unless you're black.
And also, Mayor Giuliani was sort of the hero, one of the heroes of 9/11.
No, he wasn't. He moved the emergency response center to the Twin Towers after the first bombing. The dumbest place you could put it.
I've been very disturbed to see some of the stuff that has been going on with the left targeting Mayor Giuliani recently, and I wanted to bring him on the podcast to talk.
The left? What are we going to do? Destroy his 401k? What?
Talk in depth about that.
I've made Dinesh a star. Is it my fault? Oh, shit.
Hey, Rudy, if I may call you that, thanks for joining.
Hey, Rudy, if I may. No, don't call him Rudy. It's an insult.
Joining me.
I'm a great admirer of yours for years, Dinesh. I don't
Thank
know
you.
what we're going to do without you. Oh, you're so good. And you're so honest. And
You know, felon to felon. What's it like?
similarly, you've been defamed in so many ways you don't even pay attention to it anymore.
Well,
Well, I mean, you couldn't possibly and still have people like Kirk Cameron on your podcast.
the rationality of your argument overwhelms
Rations.
your critics.
well, it seems that one of the things going on today, Rudy, if I may say so, is that the
You may, please.
Biden administration, through the Justice Department, is continuing something that might have begun under Obama, weaponizing DOJ again.
Yeah, it started under Obama. It had a pause during the Trump years when they protected his cronies, and then somehow it's being weaponized again.
Against political opponents. It seems in some ways we're seeing that with some of the January 6th protesters, the kind of over-prosecution, solitary
Over prosecution. Yeah.
confinement, all the stuff that's going on. Would you like to say a word about what's going on with those guys?
Yeah, tell us about the solitary confinement issues that you yourself are expecting to experience.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's one of the great shocks to me because you mentioned my early background. I mean, I began, after 2 years as a clerk, I began in the U.S. Attorney's Office immediately. So I spent the most formative years of my career, 17 years in the Justice Department, at the lowest level, assistant U.S. attorney, trying cases, and then third from the top under Ronald Reagan. So I know every level of the Justice Department.
And during that time, the Russians and the Chinese got a hold on New York that they couldn't have dreamed of having beforehand. That's weird. I mean, I guess it's probably just a coincidence.
Ironically, I came in as part of the post-Watergate cleanup.
Yeah, that is ironic. It's very ironic that you came in after the post-Watergate cleanup. It's incredibly, that's fucking, someone get Alanis Morissette on the phone, because I think we found a verse that actually works.
That President Ford, Attorney General Levy, Deputy Attorney General Tyler did so brilliantly and get great credit for now, historically. I mean, they started a lot of the processes, like you cannot communicate to the White House from the Justice Department except through the counsel's office. So that would avoid
stuff that Trump sidestepped while he was in office.
A lot of people at the White House calling up the head of the criminal division and saying, well, tell that U.S. attorney to drop the case on Congressman.
Yeah, that's why Biden abides by those laws.
So-and-so or whatever. And a lot of the leaks wasn't perfect, but at least there was, I think, from...
Yeah, especially during Iran-Contra.
Ford, even through Clinton. Clinton tried. And part of his bad relationship with Louis Freeh is he tried. But he didn't succeed. Somewhere
I guess he wasn't really trying.
Around Obama Holder, they corrupted the whole place. And, you know, we saw some of it, but since there was censorship even back then.
Yeah. I mean, back then, if you tried to put any of this on MySpace,
there was a lot more pursuit of conservatives for political reasons than we had any reason to believe. And
well, no one has any reason to believe it, so you're right there.
The whole idea that it was accidental turns out now in retrospect to be absolutely wrong. Holder was a clear political operative, not a lawyer. And he brought cases and dropped cases
Yeah, somewhere around the black guys, it got really bad.
In conjunction with the president. When we took over, meaning when Trump took over.
Wait, why is we equals
He
Trump?
changed to the top, but he didn't gut out the Justice Department. He didn't take them all out, which is what he
He tried.
should have done.
He wanted to.
So basically, when they say, they'll go back now and they'll say, oh, the Trump Justice Department said. The guy in the Trump Justice Department who said it may very well have been somebody who was part of the operations to frame him, and it just been moved over to the Justice Department. In fact,
Then why didn't Bill Barr have a hand on that then? If they were manipulating the law or overreaching, he had control of the Justice
in one
Department.
case, the guy they rely on, the guy who was doing this Farah stuff, was the guy who framed Flynn. So they
Flynn wasn't framed.
say, oh, the independent Farah team announced. The independent Farah team is run by the same guy who framed General Flynn,
General Flynn wasn't framed.
who has a history of hatred of Trump, this crazy stuff.
You mean Trump derangement syndrome? The phrase you're trying to think up but can't? You're upsetting Dinesh.
The person who organized the first that I know of
Yeah.
use of the Ukrainians.
Well, certainly not the best use of the Ukrainians, I guess.
Get dirty information on Trump and Manafort for the benefit of Hillary.
I'm sorry. You mean Christopher Steele? What if there's no information to be had?
Was a Biden representative to the National Security Council. He's also the guy that was the deep throat for the phony rendition of the conversation between Trump and the president. The same guy. They don't want to reveal it because it's like Alpha.
That turned out to be true, though. What he said, they said, is exactly what the transcript showed that they said. Trump just doesn't think it's illegal because he thought Rudy will take care of all the real dirt language. And it was the reason Trump kept saying it's a perfect phone call and all that shit was because he thought he had said all the stuff he needed to say without saying the illegal stuff, and said, you're going to need to talk to Rudy, and Rudy will take care of the real quid pro quo.
Like Alpha and Omega.
Very interesting. I remember at one point, Rudy, Attorney General Barr going before the Democrats in Congress and saying, hey, listen, don't accuse me of going after any of the Democrats because you can't name a single Democrat that I and the Trump Justice Department have gone after.
That's because you don't have anything.
And in some ways, what Barr is saying is that he was trying to run a, you may say, nonpartisan Justice Department.
Which is a guarantee that it's anti-Trump.
And the question I want to ask is this. If we run a nonpartisan Justice Department on our side and the other side weaponizes it on their side, then they're going to be able to do it with impunity because they know that we will never do to them what they're doing to us.
Yeah, I know. You guys are so innocent. It's just like, I mean, it's like watching two daisies fighting over a rainbow.
That was really almost as bad a statement as saying you weaponized the Justice Department. That statement is saying you neutered the Justice Department. If a Justice Department is afraid to go after Democrats, that's just as an injustice as going after innocent men.
Okay, so Trump neutered the Justice Department and Bill Barr was his weapon to do that. Cool. Okay. That's the argument?
They're letting guilty men go free. I mean, here's the best example you can possibly have.
Okay, great. Guys, best example you can possibly have. Take it away, Rudy Giuliani.
That the Trump Justice Department was not the Trump Justice Department.
Okay. What?
It was instead a hangover of the Obama-Biden Justice Department that terrorized everyone, ultimately even Bill Barr. I don't think Bill Barr realized how bad it was. And at some point,
no,
he did. And we know there's a marked difference in Bill Barr somewhere about 3 months before the election, maybe 4 months.
You mean when he'd seen all the evidence personally?
And then during the election proceeding to say there was no election fraud.
Right, there wasn't any.
Somebody got to Bill. Because maybe you can say, I'm not sure it affects the election. But you have affidavits from very, very innocent American people, engineers, postal workers.
All lying, and the ones that are saying that they saw something, none of what they say in their affidavit would matter in court at all, because it all is, I believed I saw this. I believed I should have been seeing this. I believed I saw this instead of what I believed I should have been saying. All of the affidavits say that. All the shit that was in the Kraken, all the stuff he was wandering around, all the people he brought before all the state review boards, all those stupid, like satellite gatherings they had, all the Michelle Caronis of the world all came out and went, I thought I was seeing this and I should have seen this and I think what they were doing was this. That's not an affidavit, and it doesn't mean anything in court. It's not evidence. It doesn't carry any weight whatsoever. People come, bring them in. Bring in 100 of them. Tell them all, sit down. What did you see? I saw this. Well, do you know for a fact that that was a criminal endeavor, or were those pages fraudulent? Did you know for a fact those ballots were fake? No, but I think, you can't see something like that and not think, there's no way that many people voted for Biden. Okay, thank you. Next witness. Like, all of it.
People who just volunteered to be poll watchers. Democrats who say, they told me to change ballots. They told me don't bother to look for a registration.
Yeah, they didn't tell anybody to change ballots. None of those affidavits said they told me to change ballots. None. Not a one. He's lying. Flat out. This is just an obfuscation. This is a Gish Gallop. So he's going to throw that in amongst a bunch of others. He throws that one in first, and then he'll say three near the end. The last one will be the thing he thinks is the most defensible, or he can prattle the most on. And then by arguing that last one with him, which is also fraudulent, you'll assume the rest are real. That's all this is.
They told me to take a ballot that had no registration and assign it to a phony registration. There are simple witnesses like that.
That were mistaken in what they were talking about and said they believed they saw something?
Who?
Honestly, God, we covered all this stuff during this bullshit.
Clearly, there was fraud in each one of them.
No, there wasn't. Clearly, you have Trumpsters begging to get him back in office.
These states. The question is, how much? Is it enough to overcome? And in some cases, you'd almost by instinct know that there is, because the margin's so close. It's only 10,000 votes in a couple of.
Yeah, obviously, most of the fraud that you can find benefited Trump. People that have been arrested, for example, like the guy who murdered his wife and then used her vote to vote for Trump. Like, that's fraud. It won't affect the election. There's not that many people who murder their spouse and then voted for Trump. But everybody in the last election, 100% of the people that murdered their spouse and stole that dead spouse's ballot and voted on their behalf, voted for Trump. 100%. Come at me. Prove me wrong. Everybody who murdered their spouse last year voted for Trump, and if they used their dead spouse's vote, voted for Trump as well.
Places. But look, take Arizona, for example. Just
please
exercise a logic what you're so good at.
Okay, here's a logic exercise.
Is there any way in the world that not a single illegal immigrant voted in Arizona? Not a. Yeah, there's a lot of ways they can guarantee that. They broom them out. They purge voters beforehand. Yeah. And now, granted, if people did vote illegally, if illegal aliens did vote, I have no doubt they all voted for Trump and were paid to do so. Prove me wrong. It's why it's so close. Biden would have run away with that as well. Not a single one. Arizona is.
And if a single one did it, wouldn't change the election. That's what they're talking about.
Filled with illegal immigrants. Arizona.
Yeah, who are not stupid enough to be caught committing election fraud, because if they are, they can never be citizens.
Allows illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses.
Right. But they know if they vote, they can be deported.
So unless you do a deep dive, illegal immigrants can easily vote.
And if any of them did, they voted for Trump. Prove me wrong.
Using the driver's license as their record. And they do. And they've been doing it for 20 years.
And they vote for Republicans. All of them. All of them.
Arizona had the gall, the governor, Ducey, had the gall to put in a statement of votes that doesn't take account of any illegal immigrants. So
that's because they've dealt with it for 20 years. And people get arrested if they try, or they broom out those votes, or they double check them.
I, as an intelligent, just a relatively intelligent human being,
citation needed.
Say that's a phony vote.
Yes, and it was for Trump.
It could be 5,000 phony. It could be 10,000 phony.
And that means Trump lost by 5,000 or 10,000 more votes.
It could be the expert that looked at it, who's an expert in immigration, says it's 38,000 phony. That's an estimate.
That's right. 38,000 fake votes for Trump in the state of Arizona.
But they would never give us the ballots to find out. Had they been willing to give us the voter list, which they are.
You can't. We have the private right to vote in this fucking country. We're not going to let Republicans with Second Amendment solutions go door to fucking door going, I understand everybody in this house voted for Joe Biden. Is that the case? Well, good luck in 2022. We'll see you in about 18 months.
They are still suppressing it, even with this going.
They're not suppressing it. You have no fucking right.
On. They're fighting it. If they had willing to give us the voter list.
No, you have no right to see the voter list. You are not fucking special.
I could have run that voter list against the Department of Motor Vehicle illegal immigrant list, and that alone would have yielded some illegals.
Right, and all of them would have voted for Trump.
Illegals who voted.
Right, all of them. All of them would be Trump votes. Prove me wrong.
If they voted in Maricopa County, then you take their votes out.
And you give them to Joe Biden.
You take enough votes out of Maricopa County, then Trump wins Maricopa County because it was.
No, because the illegals voted for Trump.
For Biden.
No, they don't.
This is stuff that you do in every election.
Right, and that's why they don't have to keep redoing it. Every 2 years they go through this shit.
All of a sudden, this became like treason if you did it in this election. And the simple reality is the president has not had a fair hearing on a single one of his claims. And for that, I have to believe something's going on.
Yes, he hired a shit lawyer and he has a terrible case. That's what's going on.
Rudy,
No
we're going to let's take a short pause, Rudy, because when we come back, I want to dive some more.
Yeah, he's got to sell some cigars and then tickets to the glory hole. He jumps back in over here. Let's grab round 2 of Rudy Giuliani with Dinesh D'Souza.
I'm back with Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and we're talking about, we're talking about voter integrity, but we're also talking about the Trump Justice Department. Rudy, it would seem natural that the Trump Justice Department would be the operation to investigate all this. Now, when Jeff Sessions was there in the beginning, no one could understand, I certainly couldn't, why he sort of went Rip Van Winkle on us. He kind of seemed to be removing himself from everything. And so you had a Justice
Yeah, because he was involved in it.
Department run by the underlings. Then when Barr came in, it looked like
technically run by the Constitution.
It was going to be a shift toward a kind of more sort of MAGA philosophy, if you will, at least guiding the department.
And that's exactly what happened.
But somehow toward the end, Barr himself went limp. And
well, it happens to every man at some age, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. If he watched Stuttering John's podcast, he could get some Blue Chew. And
he even declared that there was no real evidence of any election irregularities, and
there isn't.
Seemed to close the DOJ book on this matter. Now, my question is this. Trump is a business guy.
See, one of the reasons, by the way, I think they're not looking is, and why all these Republicans all over the country are like, no, don't look. They're doing in real life what Rudy said that the FBI agent said about the Hunter Biden hard drives, multiple, that were somehow laying on his desk with price tags on them. How does it work, Rudy? Is in reality that the Republicans in Maricopa County, I was like, no, don't look at that stuff. Antrim County, they erased that document that had the voting logs on it after they fixed the vote so Trump would win the county, because they were sure that it just looked weird that Trump was losing Antrim County. He should win it, but for some reason he lost it. And then they're like, no, we fixed it, we're good. And then they erased the log about the change in votes. That's weird. Why would you erase that if you fixed it? When you're on a record like, oh yeah, it was totally It was faked. Somebody was messing around with this. We made it right. Well, where's the record of it being wrong and you making it right? We erased it. See what I mean? Yeah.
This guy, he's used to running things. Why would he allow a Justice Department, such a
He's used to running things.
critical agency, to not be under his executive legitimate oversight?
It was.
That is not only a very good question, I think
No, it isn't. It's a terrible question. It was under his oversight.
you put your finger on one of the 2 or 3 core problems.
Blue goo is Glenn Beck.
Maybe even one of the core problems that cost him the presidency. I would say that he did not realize the length and the depth of the deep state.
No, of course not. The girth, the bulbousness of the head, the veininess of it.
What?
All right.
Well, I will also admit, Dinesh, I didn't either.
Dinesh. It's nice. Hey, 20 minutes in, huge fan of you. I love you. I love your work, Dinesh. He's calling him Dinesh. And it's not the first time.
Nor do I think any of the people around him, even those who had his best interests at heart. The president at the very beginning surrounded himself.
So people with the president's best interests in heart, best interests, aren't willing to throw themselves under the bus for this election fraud bullshit, maybe because they do have his best interests at heart.
With people who had his best interests at heart. And then people who were on their own agenda, people from the RNC who really hated him. And they just came in to enhance their career.
Yeah, that's all he did.
But he wasn't taking too much advice from them.
He did hire them.
Nobody
He did bring them in. I mean, the best people again.
pushed him hard enough on how bad it was. And by the time we did, it was too late. And I hold myself somewhat responsible for it because there's nobody around him that should know the Justice Department better than I do. But I didn't believe it was that bad, Dinesh. I mean,
Yeah, Dinesh. Dinesh, did you have any idea? Sorry, I have to bring. Are we going to count the number of times he calls him fucking Dinesh?
I thought, I know he asked me to be Attorney General. There's no secret about this. He asked me to be Attorney General. I only wanted to be Secretary of State.
And he went, no, we have to, unfortunately, we have to have someone qualified and who can pass a background check.
And I, largely because I'd been in the Justice Department for 17 years, I like new challenges. Had I become the Secretary of State, I would have just by instinct gotten rid of the top 10% layer of Obama people that were there during
Sure, yeah, that's what you do. Just by instinct. You could smell them.
Obama. I do it by instinct.
You could, yeah, just by instinct. Like instinctually, if I looked around and there were people of color, I'd go, Did Obama put you in here? No, I'm a George Bush employee. Bullshit, get rid of him. Obama guy. Probably bunks up with Holder.
By instinct. When I became mayor, I got rid of 4,000 people
Great.
who worked for the prior administration. Half of them might have been very good people.
I just did it by instinct. Half of them, 2,000 qualified, like excellent government workers, got rid of them just because they didn't, they didn't want to.
Every once in a while, I retained one who had a special expertise. I retained the health commission. She was great, Margaret Hamburg. But almost everybody went. And I remember people saying, oh, the government won't run. Government ran better in my first 4 weeks than when I put people back.
Rudy, I mean, you're pointing something that I...
Well, if your goal and how the government's to run is to actually commit crimes within the government, then sure, yeah.
I didn't know, which actually is
Yeah, Denise, tell me more about...
almost an American tragedy. You're saying that there wasn't... You could have been the Attorney General.
And I turned it down.
Yeah, and let me tell you something, Kanish.
This would have been avoided.
For personal reasons and also because I really had great confidence in Jeff. I recommended Jeff.
So you're a great judge. So was that more of the instinct?
Campaign. I've known Jeff.
I mean, he likes it when I call him Jeef, but yeah.
I selected Jeff Sessions for U.S. Attorney in the Reagan administration. He was one of the U.S. attorneys. You don't work with all of them, but I
No, you're like, who's the most racist elf I can find?
was in charge of the U.S. attorneys. He's the one that I would say was one of the top 10.
and I was wrong, but, you know, I could say that.
He was a very aggressive prosecutor. He revealed Democrat and Republican corruption in his state.
Yeah, it just really was a thing about if it depends on skin tone.
And that's hard in Alabama. Nobody reveals corruption up until him. He went after voter fraud hurting blacks in Louisiana and whites.
And I still recommended him.
And then on the campaign, he was
because he was legally obligated to.
the first to endorse Trump, which was virtually heroic in those days.
It really was. It was virtually heroic.
Trump was like the madman who was going to destroy the country.
And 600,000 dead, and apparently allowed a bioweapon to run roughshod over the entire country. And his only response was selling them beef. So sure, yeah.
The Senate was afraid of him. He was the first. And then I worked for 4 months very, very closely with him. We probably traveled 3 times a week together. We wrote speeches together. We got
COVID together. We
somewhat different views on immigration. And I think we met each other pretty well in the middle. That ended up giving him a much more coherent immigration policy than just.
It did? When did that show up?
Build a wall. He wanted to be Secretary of State also.
Sessions or Trump?
And when I explained to the president why I couldn't do it, which included a personal reason.
Yeah, like upcoming legal issues, and if they looked into your shit, you'd be in trouble.
He said, "Who do you think?" And at this point, he had taken out Christie.
Yeah,
he had decided that Christie's Bridgegate thing was too new for a job like Attorney General, and that it hadn't all been explored yet. He didn't feel he did anything wrong, but he felt like it would put a question there. And we both agreed.
Yeah.
Gosh, we've been better than Jeff. To think that Jeff wouldn't be appropriately loyal to this day is impossible for me.
Appropriately loyal. Well, I got news for you. Chris Christie would have been worse in that area.
Do you think, Rudy, let me ask you with regard to both Sessions and then Barr, is it just that they came to fear the deep state? Is it that the deep state may have had something on them?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, I don't know. I know.
I can't. Of course, that's impossible to know, but I'm very comfortable saying it because as a good Christian, I never allow an opportunity to bear false witness slip by.
Jeff better than Bill. And I know the department better than both of them. And now I know the department really well because I had to work with them for 2 years on the other side. And I could see how all these pockets of Trump derangement syndrome people, Southern District of New York is filled.
Yeah, it's weird how people, once they see the evidence against Trump, the transcripts, the emails, the deals, all that, once they see that, they immediately catch a bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. It's almost like when people first thought Ted Bundy seemed like a pretty decent local Republican. He raised money. He was a charming guy. And then they saw what he did at the sorority house, and suddenly they had Bundy derangement syndrome.
Of course, now, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? They're all basically Ivy League graduates. Southern District of New York is like...
well-educated people who care about doing their job, who've taken an oath.
The Stuyvesant High School of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Stuyvesant High School is our best high school. All the best students go there. And the big problem now is that 65% of them are Asian. So
that is a big problem. Yeah. What? The big problem? Fuck you, dude. What?
They call it, the black racists call it white privilege. I say, no, it's yellow privilege. No.
Oh, for fuck's sake. All right. Sorry. You done, son? What? The black racists call it white privilege, and no, it's yellow. Jesus Christ. Fuck you, dude. All right. I mean, I don't need to see any more of this. You done, son? Fucking hell. Listen to that bullshit. Why is this clip not making the fucking rounds?
Now is that 65% of them are Asian. So they
hold on. The what is now? Hold on.
School of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Stuyvesant High School is our best high school. All the best students go there.
All the
big
best
problem
students.
now is that 65% of them are Asian. So they call it, the black racists call it white privilege. I think, no, it's yellow privilege, not white privilege.
But you're saying it's the same gang, the Stuyvesant High School.
No, he's saying that Asians should be referred to as yellow, you fuck. What? Good God. Just awful. And you can just tell. Can you imagine what this asshole talks like when there's not a camera rolling? All right. Jesus Christ. Fucking hell.